Good morning, interweb. Welcome back to the Artifexian podcast. In this month's admittedly rather short episode, we chat about silly English place names, Bill's cameo on the TV show Vikings, do some Jade City follow-up, call for a new term for worldbuilding, hear about an offer of support in Lansk, and check out some Bank of Artifexia contributions. All that, plus lots more, in this month's episode. Also, hello and good night, John. It's so hard to start the show, Bill. Do you know that?
You'd like to attend to a personal matter.
I would like to attend to a personal matter, but before I do that, I put it on myself to open the show. I open every single show, and it occurs to me that was a terrible decision. I should just given it to you.
We're in a thing now. You got to keep it up.
Exactly. Personal matter. I want to say hi to my future father-in-law, whose name is John. And the reason why I want to do this is because it came as a complete shock to me. I was chatting to him and he was saying that he listens to us, to this podcast, to fall asleep. Or rather, he listens to podcasts to fall asleep, and every so often we're in the queue and he will just be in his ears during the night. So I'd like to think that our world building agitprop is invading his brain as he sleeps. It's just assimilating into him. So I just want to say hi, John. And I think it's great. John's wonderful. I just think it's so funny that he has no interest in world building or any of this thing at all. But out of kind of support for me, I guess, he has the show in his feed. And I think that's so cute. So hi, John. You're the best of nerds.
Thank you, Admiral, and sleep tight.
Oh, the Admiral. That's right.
I think that's how the Navy works.
Yeah, that's above captain, isn't it?
Yeah. They're presumably captains, their dads are admirals. That's just logical.
That's it. Well, nepotism, you know.
Yeah.
No. Is there anything above admiral? What's the ultimate rank?
I mean, then it becomes more like a political office. So, in the UK, you've got the First Lord of the Admiralty.
John, the First Lord of the Admiralty. That's not bad. I'll take that. I don't know. I think in Ireland it would just be the Minister for Defence. That's less fun.
It's less grand sounding.
English political nomenclature is extremely fun sometimes. It's really bombastic and grand sounding, and I really enjoy it.
They know how to do ridiculous names for things.
Yeah. And all their place names are ridiculous as well. I love going to London and just getting on the tube, and then I go to Cockfosters and you're lol.
I've always liked Canada Water. What's that about?
Canada Water. Wow.
Yeah, it's a part of London, and I don't know why it's called that. It's just kind of
I've never been there before.
Interesting name. I could look it up, I suppose.
London place names, absolutely nuts. So yeah, hi John. First actual point of follow-up. Bill, we discussed the last day, we were talking the last day about Vikings, the TV show. And you had mentioned loadies many years ago that you were in Vikings as an extra.
Certainly was.
And you had said that you were in episode 8, Sacrifice. Now, as it so happens, we were on episode 6, the day we did the last recording. So I have since watched episode 8, Sacrifice, and myself and the captain were keeping an eagle eye out for you, and I think I found you. So I sent you a picture. This is going to be in the show notes. It'll be on the chapter art. I think this is you. You said you were staring up at a statue of Odin in Uppsala, and we played that scene over and over and over again, and that this is the only character that seems to fit your physical makeup. I believe this is you. Can you confirm?
I can confirm that is me.
Yes, that's so cool. I have a question about this.
Yeah.
What was they put you in costume? What was it like wearing the costume, and was it accurate? Do you know, was it an actual armor sort of thing, or was it fake stage props? What did it feel like?
I mean, this is nearly a decade ago. It's actually more than a decade ago, I think.
Well, just boot up that RAM, man. Come on.
I don't know. We just went to a big warehouse, where they did all the production and all the props and things, and we got fitted for it. I have an idea the idea of studded leather is ahistorical, to be honest.
Well, you're saying that it is historical or it's ahistorical?
Ahistorical.
Ahistorical.
Yeah. So I guess because that kind of looks like what I'm wearing there. I'm wearing a sort of a leather, big bulky leather vest thing with metal dots in it. So I think it is probably not very accurate. But it was, it was reasonably comfortable. It was fine.
And how long were you? Tell me more about being on set, because this is fascinating. I know no one else who has been in a film before. How long were you on set for?
I think we did 3 days.
Wow.
At that shoot, and they were meant to be 8 hours, and they ran over on at least 2 of the days, maybe all 3. And so kind of the period that I was in the shot that I was on the set for is like, it's a good chunk of the episode. It's like kind of maybe 20 minutes of the episode. And there was actually probably, I don't know, it's even more if I remember the episode clearly. Because we did some of the night scenes as well. And it was actually really well paid. Especially with the overtime, because the rates went up hugely when the shoot ran over. So it was pretty well paid. And it was just kind of good crack. Just kind of sitting around in the forest, hanging out, and occasionally we'd have to like act a certain way because we might be on camera. And in general, we were just kind of chatting to the other extras and hanging out and having a good time.
Could one make a living as being an extra? You say it's good, well paid. If you kept picking up these gigs, could that be your job?
I reckon if you did it constantly, it would be okay. No, I mean, I said it was really well paid. Again, this was a decade ago before I, had to worry about money things the way I do now.
Sure.
And, I was paying a lot less in rent and things. But as I recall, yeah, like it would be hard, I think, to do it full time. It would be quite draining. And it would be difficult to get consistent work with it.
Sure.
But yeah, I mean, it was. I think you could certainly do pretty well on it.
And did you come into contact with any of the main actors at all?
A little bit, yeah. Like not directly. So. Oh no, I had a chat with the kid who played Bjorn Ironside, like Ragnar's
the
blonde son, yeah.
Cool.
He was a nice young chap. And George Blagden seemed like a really nice dude. And apparently he is. He's just a lovely guy. That's Athelstan.
That's Athelstan, okay.
Yeah, the priest that they kidnap.
Yes.
Yeah, the monk or whatever he is. He seemed like a really kind of just sound, down to earth, regular dude, and I think he is generally regarded to be that, from other stories and by fans and things. That was kind of it. I don't really remember. No, I didn't talk to George Bagman. I just remember kind of him hanging out and being cool and being nice to the extras and stuff. Yeah. It was a good experience.
And is there anything, final question, is there any sort of like behind the scenes acting things that you can elucidate on? Because I've always been fascinated as to like how competent of a reader an actor is. Like how many takes do they need to take? How like do they often forget lines? Like have they memorized the full script for the whole day? Did you notice anything like that? Like were all the high paid main actors just like beating through the script, or was it constant like, no Bob, this is Uppsala, not this is Uppsala? Do you know?
I don't remember there being a lot of retakes because of actor mistakes.
Wow, that always strikes me as fascinating because, like, I get the impression it's hard enough to memorize a full play, but to memorize like a TV show seems mad because, or at least the way I understand it, it's not a sequential thing. Like you don't just start and go like you do like, oh, we're going to shoot like the end of the episode now, and then we'll shoot the middle and then the beginning.
Right,
then,
yeah.
You know, so I would imagine that would mess with your head something serious. And then
I've never
as
even
well,
really thought about that.
yeah, and as well, being able to like emote correctly, to be like, you know, you've just lost your son. You say the director says to the actor, but sure, the actor hasn't acted the part where he's lost the son. So it's kind of like that must be so tricky. And I always just assume that TV actors and film actors will just need constant retakes because of the choppy nature that it is filmed in, or at least that's the impression I get is that it's filmed in a very choppy nature. So that strikes me as surprising, Bill, that you didn't notice that. That's mad.
Oh, again, maybe I've just forgotten, but I don't think so.
Competent actors, who would have thought could, eh? But Bill and Vikings, that's so cool. That is just awesome, and I'm so glad I found you. Okay, now next point of follow up is Jade City. Last month we reviewed Jade City, and in the chat, the live chat for the podcast, you made an offhanded comment about the monopoly on violence in Jade City, which if I am on the same, what's the word I'm looking for? If I'm thinking the same as you here, I think this is a really interesting comment. So I'd like you to elucidate on this. What do you mean by, what's your take on the monopoly on violence in the book Jade City?
So the monopoly on violence is the kind of a concept that the state are the only entity that can permit violence, or that can commit violence and can be permitted to commit violence. You know, you're not supposed to be violent, but the police can use force and the army can use force. And in Jade City, in the setting presented there, that is not the case, because there is a state and there is police and military, but also the clans, the Jade clans, or the Greenbone clans rather, are kind of, they exist parallel and separate to that they have the ability to commit violence as well, and that they're not prosecuted by the state for that, and it's kind of a parallel system. So it's kind of it's an interesting setup in that it's like something quite historical. You know, in medieval and Renaissance Europe, there wasn't a single focus of power in a society. There was the state or whatever, but there was also guilds and there was also the church. And that is kind of like the situation we have here, that there is the state power, but also the Greenbone clans. They're part of the country, but they are a little bit outside that structure and that hierarchy, which is unusual to see in a modern style setting. Yeah,
I did not pick up on that at all. But the minute you dropped that comment in the chat, I was like, yeah, that is so true. That is a great bit of insight there. I would dispute you slightly on I think you said something to the effect there of the state in Jade City, kind of like there's a share of this monopoly on violence. I know that's oxymoronic, but you know, but as far as I remember, it's made explicit that the state is like violentless. Because there's this one, I can't remember, there's one paragraph where they mentioned that like police basically don't do any violence. They just are glorified traffic cops who ticket people. So I think it's not, I would read it less of a share and more as the monopoly is, the clans hold the monopoly and the state is kind of like a diplomatic wing, a diplomatic and like logistics wing of KCON. And the clans are kind of like, they're the military. And then operating on behalf of, outside of the state. It is kind of weird.
Well, like, you know, they investigate murders, right? The police will do that. And then a murderer, if they're found guilty, you know, there are courts, and then if the murderer is found guilty, they will go to jail. So they are preventing violence in that sense, and also they are using force. They have the power to enforce those laws. So that still kind of is part of the concept of the monopoly of violence.
we're gonna get demonetized again for saying the word violence over and over again. But here we are. This harkens back to ages ago. We had our talk about Gandhi, and his views on violence, and his I think his famous quote was, "Poverty is the worst form of violence." And I remember saying in that episode that I really need to drop the idea that violence means punching someone, that like violence is a much more subtle thing, and acts of violence aren't necessarily physical. So in that respect, yes, the police like do violence under a broader definition in KCON. So I agree with you there. Yeah, sorry, I was a bit.
And like they do have like, you know, armed police to a point as well, and as I said, like that's the violence does mean things other than just the punching. Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess I took the armed police to be somewhat like I guess, you know, those guards outside Buckingham Palace. Like, don't they hold guns? And I'm pretty sure no one of them have ever discharged any sort of gun at all. So I took it more of as kind of like a symbolic thing, or I guess maybe harkening back to a time when the state had more power in KCON.
But that's still a projection of force, and it's still like that they are empowered to use it if they need to, you know.
Yeah. They can whip out the muskets if need be. Cool. I thought that was really cool. I thought that was a really, really good point, and definitely worth putting in the show. All right, that is Jade City. Final thing. This isn't really follow up. This is just like musings, I guess. I would like. I've been thinking about this for a while. I think we need a new term for world building, and I want to see what you think.
World building.
Yes, world building. Yeah, well, excluding that for a second because that's already taken. I want to see what you think about this and if you have any suggestions. The reason why I say this is that because it's pretty clear that there are many different types of world building, and I think usually when people go, like, if there's a film review and like the world building is very solid in this, it's referring to a very distinctly different thing than what I do on my channel. Like, it's world building to serve an artistic work, to serve a narrative, to give a vessel for characters to exist in. Whereas what I do on the channel is world building as like model train set. Like, I'm just building a model train set for the sake of building a model train set because it's fun. I'm building a world for the sake of building a world because it's fun. And that is the goal. And the goal is not to have a narrative or a work of art or anything like that. And they're two very different things because, you know, in the context of the former, what I do would be very bad world building because I'm spending literal years, or actually, to narrow it down, literal months, just like figuring out the shape of land masses because I find evolution to be quite, geological evolution to be quite interesting. Like, that's insane if you're writing a novel. Like, Sanderson would look at that and be like, that's bad world building. Like, when are you going to write the book? Whereas, and then the reverse would be like, I would find the world building one needs to do for a book to be not that interesting to me because it's not like the full model train set, you know? You don't have a deep time history necessarily and things like that. So I think there needs to be a different term so that people know, like, okay, this is like, I guess, narrative world building, and this is like world building for world building's sake. And I really struggle to come up with a term. Like, I really do want there to be a new term. The two ones that I love but I can't take because someone else has them is Imagineering. Disney has a monopoly on that one. I think that's a great term. Just doing imaginative things for the sake of it. And then the other one is Fictioneering, which Lycan has taken, much to my chagrin, because I think that is the perfect term for this. It's just creating a fiction, a fictitious world. And according to Google, the term fictioneering has negative connotations, like of low quality work, under some definitions that I found on Google. And I would really like the idea of reclaiming that to be like, it's not low quality, it's like excessive detail sort of thing. And it ties into the idea of, like, in the context of an author, what I would be doing would be extremely low quality, like not fit for purpose. So the term fictioneering would be so good, but again, Lycan has it. Someone in the Patreon suggested worldsmithing to tie in with the spreadsheet, but I don't know. I need a term, and none of the ones I can think of work, and the ones that I think do work are taken. So I want to ask you any suggestions, and do you think this is even a valid thing to want?
It's all of your wants are valid, Edgar.
Thanks, Bill.
I'm googling here. There's a word that I've seen applied to Middle Earth. I'm trying to poke around here. Here they are. Legendarium is the body of Tolkien's work in Lord of the Rings, and mythopoeic or mythopoeia, which means myth making. Mythopoeia seems they seem a little kind of artsy for the kind of the thing you're going for. They seem a little bit more like the making stories.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Yeah.
And just the ones that came to mind.
Mythopoeia, I would automatically yeet. Legendarium, I guess, but like then you'd have like I am legendariuming, and it's just the mouthfeel is just completely wrong in that one. Because I think part of the thing about inventing a new term is that it's got to have good mouthfeel.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it would
like
never take off.
Artifexia. That's got a great mouthfeel.
Thanks, Bill. Bill with the compliments left, right, and centre today. I love it. My ego has been thoroughly massaged.
You're my buddy, man.
But that's it. That's I'd not considered those, but I can't say I'm enamored.
Yeah, no, that's fair. They were just kind of the initial ones as a jumping off point. Let me think. Imagineering. There's something brewing at the back of my head. I'll mull on it and get back to you.
Cool. And listeners, if you've any suggestions, let me know. Because sorry, I'm kind of reiterating things I've already said, but I do get comments every so often being like, "What is the point? Like, why are we doing this?" So I kind of feel like if there was a different term, people would take it, would place it in a different context, which would be really useful. But yeah, fictioneering, man. Oh, so good. Damn you, Lycan. All right. That's all the things I had to say and follow up on. Have you got anything else to add?
Follow up wise, I don't believe so.
All right. So we're back to a standard episode. So I believe we have world building incoming. No,
we certainly do. World building.
Yes. What do you got for us?
I have an update on events in Lansk.
Very good.
Baron, allow me to summarize the current condition of the city. The occupation of the Old Tower and surrounding district has lasted months now, and the bailiff's attempts to reclaim the region from the self-appointed popular executive have ground to a halt. The area of the city abandoned to the agitators is no smaller than on the day they struck with violence at Lansk's ancient heart. Not a street nor building was reclaimed without them elsewhere further expanding the reach of their barricades. Every victory of the legitimate authorities was swiftly reversed or countered by an agitator's coup. Worse, the greatest reclamation of territory was not at the hands of the bailiffs, but by the actions of a mob. Desperate citizens, no doubt civil in normal circumstances, but driven to violence by the occupation's affront to good Abeski sensibilities and business. In a single day, they reclaimed a row of houses and a compound of yards, more than all the bailiffs' combined actions has achieved in all these months. This protracted siege has shown no signs of success, and as long as the Earthani are supplying them, and those within are content, this stalemate will continue. Baron, do not mistake this letter as an admonishment of your service. You have found yourself in an unenviable position, The popularity of the bailiffs is at a nadir. Even those without agitated sympathies are distrustful after these last few months. Those within the seized district are fed comfortably on Arthani supplies, while many of those without are starving and prevented from attending to their work. Despite the agitators' cynical, empty promises of safe passage for the groundsfolk, surely they knew you would have to prevent such traffic and be reckoned at fault for the ensuing misery of the destitute workers denied their fair wage. We in the companies are suffering from similar perceptions. After the regrettable riot whipped up by Yathara, and the demands of the agitators to remove the companies from municipal affairs, your reluctance to engage us further is understandable. In other circumstances, it would even be prudent. Your initial capitulation to the occupiers was necessary, that is undeniable, but the time has come to put an end to their reign of anarchy. I wish Lansk restored to peace and prosperity, and I urge you to use all means at your disposal to see this feat completed. To this end, I would place myself and the assets of the Tamar Company at your disposal once more. Having consulted with the Eastern Office, I can confirm I am able to offer you the assistance of any power the bailiffs require. The fee will be merely nominal. The restoration of order to the city and resumption of trade is more valuable to us than simple currency. We have the troops to occupy reclaimed streets, the supplies and arms for your own bailiffs, and agents placed into the surrounding districts to provide intelligence. We are equipped to deal with the batteries in the occupied area, and we have means to disrupt the Arthani vessels that supply them. As a friend, Baron, if I may be granted the presumption of considering myself your friend, I urge you to heed this advice and accept this offer. I consider you a confidant, Baron, as trustworthy an acquaintance as I have in this city, and I will not mislead you. From one misviri to another, your position as chief bailiff will no longer be tenable should this agitation continue. Lansk can ill afford it. Indeed, the spires as a whole shall be shaken and cast down if this affront is allowed to continue unpunished. Allow me to place myself at your disposal for all of our sakes. I await your reply. Your ally, Dajag Tashansha, Commander, Tamar Company, Lansk Depot.
All right. We are back in Lansk.
Back in Lansk.
Back in Lansk. Two things. One, general summary. And then two, given that it must be now, a month or two since we've done world building?
About three.
About three. I think it's definitely worth a recap of the characters involved.
Sure.
So, general summary.
So, you may remember a good few episodes ago, I had, it was in the episode, The Defenestrations of Lansk. I wrote a piece called Declaration on the Barricades, which was a list of demands by protesters who took over part of the city of Lansk, specifically the area around the old tower. And were calling for an end to kind of company influence on Abeski culture and their kind of indirect control of the cities and of the civilization. And after that, we heard from recurring villain Yarta Yartlan that members of his family had been killed in the clashes where these agitators overtook the old tower district. Mm-hmm. This is taken up a few months later. The siege is still underway. The occupiers still have control of the tower and of the district. The bailiffs, who are like the kind of municipal force of the city, the kind of city government, have been unable to find a solution or find a resolution to this conflict. One of the demands made by the agitators was the removal of the companies from municipal duties, so no longer using private power for peacekeeping and civic functions. And so they have been in control of this area for a while, and this letter is from the local commander of the Tamar Company asking Chief Bailiff Baron Einthoff to once again employ the company to restore order and to get rid of the protesters.
Okay, and actually you did a good job there, actually reintroducing some of the main characters. That's cool. So I'm confused slightly, Bill. It's almost certainly a me thing and not a you thing. But so in Lansk, the companies are being used as a policekeeping force, or like they're the military wing, right?
So like not they are private, but they are hired in to do those kind of roles. Yeah.
So the siege is still occurring, and it appears to me that the companies aren't doing much to stop that, because this letter seems to imply that Dejag Deshencha is like, Bowron, please come and use us. And I'm like, why would Bowron not use us? Like, and you said that the agitators, one of their demands is to decouple the companies from way of life. It feels like Bowron's done that, and now the companies are like, no, you need to use us because it's going nowhere. So what's going on? What am I misreading here? Is Bowron attempting to give in to demands, but it's just going terribly because of that? Like, what's the dynamics here?
So he was kind of forced into doing that by the outrage of what happened. They took over the district, and one of their demands was that the companies be removed from their work for the city, and fearing further uprising in an attempt to placate it. Placate the agitators and stop increased violence, he did so.
Okay, and do I take it then that's the reason why this siege is ongoing, because they're lacking the military power of the companies?
Yeah.
Okay, I see. Okay, so you have a quote here, second paragraph. Despite the agitators' cynical, empty promises of safe passage for the groundsfolk, surely they knew you would have to prevent such traffic, and be reckoned at fault for the ensuing misery of the destitute workers denied their fair wage. Why would this be the case? Like, why? I struggle to understand why Bowron wouldn't just allow safe passage. Is it a case of like, if he did that, people would go over to the other side and be like, God, it's actually really great over here. We should totally stay here. And then there's more rebellion on his hands. Is that what's going on?
Partially that. Also to prevent supplies and things being more easily smuggled in, to prevent communication between those within, to make more difficult communication between those within and those outside. It's kind of a siege sort of situation. So they're reluctant to allow things to just go ahead as normal, to try and put pressure on the protesters and the agitators.
I see. And then further down you have... Yes, it does, yeah. Further down you have, your initial capitulation to the occupiers was necessary, that is undeniable, but the time has come to put an end to their reign of anarchy. You, the author... what do you think? Not in what's the word we've used before? Diegetically, not diegetically. Just your opinions on this. Is that the correct play? The correct play was to capitulate, pull out the companies to prevent further rebellion. Is that did Bowron make a correct analysis of the situation there, or do you think that if Bowron had just held the companies and squashed the rebellion quickly? And quietly maybe, then we might be in a better place from the perspective of the Ibeski, or the Ibeski powers to be.
It wouldn't have been quietly. It would have been very, very publicly. It would have been a significant escalation of violence.
I guess quickly more than anything else.
They would have been able to get back in control, but it would have been risky because the agitators had control of like anti-aircraft batteries within the district that they took over, and were seemed willing to use them. So it would have been significant amounts of violence in doing so, both against the agitators, against civilians and the bailiffs and companies. It probably would have been successful, and they would have resumed overt control, but it may have been damaging in terms of the perception of the legitimate authorities and the companies.
Do you think so? God, I would have read such a situation as anyone who is on the side of the companies, or say on the fence would look at the restoration of order as being a net good. Do you know? Even if it's extremely violent, but it's kind of like, okay, so the boyos came back in, they trashed up the gaff, they murdered all of the agitators, but at least I can go to work again. Go them. I want those chaps ruling over us. That's how I think a lot of people would. I don't really see the risk in it.
A lot of the people who aren't in positions of power would then maybe have seen that the violence that they were willing to use and the brutality that they were capable of, and they could have suffered in public perceptions that way. And Barron is smart enough to realize that.
Yeah. I mean, obviously that has to be the case because you wrote the thing, but I just feel like Bowron here, like the call for Bowron was to go full fash, and he just didn't go full fash. And if you don't go full fash, you're kind of in a no man's land here. Like, I feel like his position currently is crap, because his position currently is that he has a bunch of rebels in his territory, and he has sidelined his allies in the company. So he's in this like incredibly crap no man's land. So I don't know, like, again, obviously the way you see things is correct because you wrote the thing. But I feel like mistakes have been made here. And I feel like...
Sure, but like not everyone makes the right decisions all the time.
No, I know, but we're just discussing those things, because otherwise if it was just very cut and dry, it'd be like, all right, great world building, Bill, cool, like, see you next month, you know? And I guess this leads on to this line here, this quote you have, the fee for having the companies come back will be merely nominal. The restoration of order to the city and the resumption of trade is more valuable to us than simple currency. So I totally see from the company's perspective that the restoration of trade and restoration of order is a good thing for them. And I can read it that the nominal fee will actually be nominal. But I wonder, given that you do like your double-edged sword type things, I wonder if that fee may not be so nominal because as punishment to Bowron for sidelining them. And there's a lot in that you've written which either can be seen as sincere or veiled threats. Like, from one mere sphere to another, your position as chief bailiff will no longer be tenable should this agitation occur. That can be like, hey, I care for you and what we've built, or I'm threatening you. So I wonder, is this nominal fee thing in there? Did you intend that to be coded for, like, you're going to pay the price for ousting us? Or is this, do I take it on face value?
I didn't intend that as a threat. It's more kind of cajoling. It's kind of like, you know, you're in a bad position and we're your allies, you can trust us. How much they can be trusted is up for debate, but there isn't kind of I wasn't intending for there to be a veiled threat there.
Okay. Throughout the rest of it, though, are there veiled threats? Like that quote in the last paragraph, your position as chief bailiff is no longer tenable. Because that reads to me like weaponized politeness.
I think he's coming at it more like, these are some hard truths that you need to be told.
Okay.
And I am telling you these outright because I respect you. That's what he's trying to be like.
Okay. That's fair. Again, I think this is a testament to your writing that there are many, many ways in which you can interpret this. Like, I don't feel my interpretation of weaponized politeness is invalid. I think you can totally read that into this. Totally.
Sure.
Yeah, and yeah, I suppose that's my notes. I suppose the final thing I'll ask is, where do you see this going? Again, not as the author, but just put yourself in the mind of like someone commenting on this, like a reviewer of this work. What do you think? Where do you think it is going to go?
I think that he probably will return to the companies in an effort to save his own position. And that things have not. He has tried he will justify it as he's tried the route of appeasement and paying attention to their demands, but that hasn't worked. And these poor people who are outside and they can't make their living anymore. We need to do it for them. So I reckon more violence is on the horizon.
Do you foresee any sort of situation where the agitators win out?
In this specific scenario, I think it will be very difficult. As regards the occupation of Lansk, I think it will be extremely difficult.
Okay, because we could get some, if we're to draw on Irish history a little bit, we can get some divided city vibes here, where you have analogies to Derry, back in the Troubles. Just Wikipedia this, folks. I don't want to go explain the whole shebang. But yeah, you could have analogs to Catholic and Protestant held areas. You can have rebel held areas and company held areas, because that would be kind of a cool aesthetic to go for if the agitators were able to hold an enclave here.
Yeah, the thought that occurred to me just as we were discussing that, as you were saying that, was actually more like the Easter Rising. That there's a kind of an area held, and then the violence of the retribution won people over to the sympathies of the rebels.
That's a good point. I suppose I was I'm trying to get to a place where we have a divided city, because that didn't occur in the Easter Rising. Again, I'll leave links to this.
Sure.
I really don't want to have to explain the entirety of Irish history, and I'll almost certainly get most of it wrong. So Wikipedia is a friend here, folks. Because that could be cool. I can imagine stories. I can imagine so many letters from, I don't know if you're thinking this way, but families that have been, because obviously if an occupying force takes over, they don't care about drawing their lines in the most equitable way. They'll just draw a line on a map and be like, this is our area. And that can split apart families, etc. Mm-hmm. And I could see a bunch of really cool letters being exchanged between people on opposite sides of the divide, and hearing about how that takes its toll on everyday life. Yeah. And much like in the Derry example, eventually some sort of straw will break the camel's back. You can't hold this occupation one way or the other indefinitely, And I think that could lead to really interesting trades. Whereas the Easter Rising analogy, again, I'm so sorry, anyone who doesn't know about Irish history, the Easter Rising analogy is kind of like a one and done sort of thing. It's there was a rising, extreme violence, and then people go wait a minute, those people are bad, end of. Whereas I think the enclave thing could set up a prolonged period of interest for us, I think. Mm-hmm. But as always, don't ever listen to me. I'm just spewing stuff onto the internet because it's fun.
Your ideas are welcomed.
Oh, thank you. Did I miss anything? Is there something subtle in here that I completely missed the point of what's going on?
No, I mean, this isn't clear at all. This can't be told from the letter, I think, but the mob that took back, that are mentioned in the kind of the first big paragraph there, that took back a section of the agitators' territory, they were actually agents of the Tamar Company.
Oh.
Or maybe they were kind of criminals who were paid into it, or some kind of combination thereof. It was not a wholly citizen-led action.
It's not grassroots.
No, it was astroturfed.
Astroturfed violence. Mm-hmm. I'm trying to. There's a fun title involving astroturf here, and I can't come to it in a very expedient manner. I'll think on it. Yeah, you're right. There's no way from the text you would ever pick up on that.
No, it's not there at all. But that is what happened.
That's sneaky on their part, though, to be like, hey, you really need us because of all of this trouble, and trouble that we're helping foment. That's the companies. Say what you want about the companies. The companies kind of, are quite clever. They know what they're doing here.
They certainly have a sort of cunning.
They do, and they're never portrayed as like incompetent. They're ruthlessly cynical in the way they conduct themselves, which I think is really cool. Yeah, cool. I can't wait to see what happens to Bowron. I think Bowron's reign of power is not long for this world, I think. Definitely. All right. World building done. Fun story. Amber from last episode, our letter writing correspondent, mentioned about Edgar billing, world Edgaring. And I was like, you know what? Maybe I will try and sit down and write a little thing. And like, that was a fool's errand because I spent like 2 hours trying to write stuff. And again, I'm reminded that I just cannot write at all. I am the worst writer ever. And I had a relatively fun idea based on stuff that I want to do on the channel. And just getting it into nice prose, it's just really difficult. Like, it's really hard. And like in my mind, I can see the movie of the sort of like cool little short story I want to tell, but conveying that is just really difficult. So I say this all as a roundabout way of complimenting you again on your just like every month there is world building, and it's never crap. Like there's sometimes where I'm kind of like it's a bit dense and like I enjoy it as much as others, but like it's always completely fitting with the world you've constructed, and I envy your ability to do that. So if you could just send me over some of those skills, that would be class.
I'll do my best.
All right. We have a super short green room, but I think we should head into it.
Let's do that.
So we have only one item of follow-up or whatever, one item to put in the green room, and that is Bank of Artifexia, ASMR.
Excellent.
Engaged. There we go. Got a whole raft of letters, and I just got a message from customs being like, you've more letters on the way. I'm like, good God. Everyone held off for a period of months, and now they're all sending it at once, which is class. So this letter comes from Emma. Hey guys, first of all, I love the podcast. I've been listening since the very beginning and get excited every time a new one drops. I'm Irish, and I love when you get into a discussion about the Irish language. I'm trying to claw back a cúpla focal, and I appreciate the respect you have for the language. Thank you. This is Edgar talking now. I do have great respect, and I can't speak a word of it, barring a few stock phrases. And I have been trying to source like Irish language learning groups to like go to and get reacquainted with the language, but they're just very, very hard to find. And Duolingo is trash when it comes to Irish. So Níl lán Gaeilge agam agus tá mé brón. I have two. Back to Emma. I have. You what?
Tá brón orm.
Oh, tá brón orm. You're right. Oh, you see. Oh. Yeah. I was going to explain what I did wrong, but it doesn't matter. It's all wrong, folks. Don't listen to any Irish, I say. Back to Emma. I have two contributions to the Bank of Artifexia, a 5 Georgian lari and 5 Belarusian ruble. Now, unfortunately, we just got Georgian lari from Amber last month. But Belarusian ruble, it's a new addition to the Bank of Artifexia. First time that's arrived, which is awesome. I got both of these while on holidays in Tbilisi. I think Emma might in fact be Amber here. In Tbilisi, Georgia, a while back. I met a Belarusian fella there, and he likes to collect currency, so we swapped euros for rubles. Georgia is an amazing country. I've never left Europe, so experience in language and alphabet that was completely unrelated to those I'm familiar with was a great experience. I've never been to Belarus, so I can't comment on it, but your man I met in Georgia was really nice. Georgian lari is, the 5 Georgian lari is 174. Oh, and as always, chapter art, you can see these notes. The obverse features a portrait of Georgian author, here we go, Ivana Yavakishvili, and the reverse features details from Nico Pirosmani, paintings Threshing and the Fisherman in the Red Shirt, and the coat of arms of Georgia. In brackets, shamelessly stolen word for word from Wikipedia. The Belarusian ruble, so 5 Belarusian ruble is 0.000185 euro. That is a depreciated currency. The obverse features Belaya Veja in Kamianiec, an old tower, and on the reverse a collage on the theme of the first Slavic settlements. Parentheses, also stolen word for word from Wikipedia. Love ya, Emma. We love you too, Emma. Thanks for writing in.
Oh, cheers, Emma.
That is awesome. And Guramilam, God, I card you. I said that right, didn't I?
Akara.
Okay, I hand back the passport. Here, I'm getting my passport. Here, take my passport, Bill. I am so happy with the Belarusian ruble. That is, if you go to the money map, folks, it's in the show notes. Europe is like so nearly there. We have Iceland, Denmark, Hungary, plus the majority of the Balkans. But like Europe is nearly all green now, which is just awesome. And like for our honeymoon, I'm planning on going to South America, and I think Bolivia is probably on the card. So Bolivia might be ticked off. And depending where we fly in, I might be able to get like Argentina and things like that. So that might be really cool. So the map is like seriously coming along, like seriously coming along. I'm still waiting on North Korean currency from our one North Korean listener, but we'll get there one day. So yeah, thank you, Emma.
Isn't the Georgian script really pretty?
It's so good, and the language is really pretty as well. Like it's often held up as being because it's mad consonant cluster heavy. But if you listen to people talk, again, I'll put links in the show notes. It's really pretty sounding, despite the alphabet soup that it would imply, or what the alphabet soup implies. It's a really pretty sounding language, and I wish I knew more about it. The one thing I will say on Emma's thing here is the comment on I've never left Europe, so experience in language and alphabet that was completely unrelated to those I'm familiar with was a great experience. Just like a point of advocacy here to people, if at all possible. Obviously, this finances depending. It's a good idea to get out of Europe because like it's so much cheaper everywhere else. I've talked about this before, and like you might spend 600 euros say on a flight to Cambodia, but when you're in Cambodia, you can live like a king for hardly any money. Whereas if you were to take you could easily get through 600 euro if you were to take a week in Denmark, for example, like easily when you factor in accommodation and food costs and the cost of transport. Like getting out of Europe is financially really, really beneficial. And I don't really understand why most people don't do this. Like even John, my future father-in-law, when he was contemplating his honeymoon, they initially went with Europe and then did a bit of digging, and they realized they could just stay way longer in Thailand for way cheaper, and went with that instead. So yeah, get out of Europe, Europeans. It's worth it. It really, really is, and it's cost effective. That's my advocacy piece.
Sweet, yeah. So I've been to Zambia and I've been to South America, and yeah, they are very expensive to get to, but they are definitely worth the trip.
Yeah, for sure. And I've told the story before about sitting on a beach in Indonesia and like seeing the menu and being like, a meal here is like €1. So we could just be like, we could sit here all day and eat, and we'd be rid of like €10. That's it. Whereas in a European restaurant, €10 nothing. Sure, like what's a Big Mac these days? Big Mac meal is like what, six quid or something like that, 6-7 quid.
I haven't the faintest idea.
Nor do I. But it's below a tenner. It's above a $5 or below a tenner, if I recall correctly. And like and that's crap food. Whereas you go to cheaper places, it's all gravy. Nepal. I've never been to Nepal, but the captain was in Nepal. She did like a gap year type thing there. And her stories of how cheap it was are insane. Like Nepal is, I think it's commonly listed as one of the cheapest countries to go to, and also extremely beautiful. So it really is worth sinking the cost into an expensive flight just to get a more prolonged stay when you're there and to not feel the pinch of it. So yes, that is Bank of Artifexia. Thank you so much, Emma. And thanks to everyone for writing it. It is class. Oh, one more thing. I find it hilarious, right? Because for complicated reasons, the PO box, if you will, it's not really a PO box, but we'll call it a PO box for the sake of simplicity. The PO box for this show is in England for complicated reasons. And I find it gas that Emma here, who is from Ireland, sent a letter to England to just be sent back to Ireland. I think if Irish correspondents are going to feel the pinch on that in terms of money spent, because we're sending it across borders just to get it back to me. But it's the only way it works, and I don't understand why An Post, our post service, seems to just be a broken organization. But anyhow, that's a different rant for a different day. I think, oh God, that's a really short show, Bill. Oh no, but that's all I got.
Short but sweet.
Short but sweet, hopefully.
But sweet, like me.
All right, well, if that is us, we may as well round it out. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being in chat. Thanks for supporting the show on Patreon. Y'all are just beautiful, beautiful people. We'll see you again in the very near future. Until next time,
Edgar out.
out.